So stop me if you've heard this one. A bride-to-be excitedly plans an elaborate proposal to her bridesmaids. So well thought out self-care products, maybe in a ribbon-secured box or in a personalised tote bag. And it's topped off with a card that reads anywhere between, "Will you be my bridesmaid?" to, "Lol, like it's a question anyway, you're mine, bitch." There are happy tears, there's reminiscing, and future hopes are shared. How amazing to be surrounded by such a supportive cheer squad of family and or friends. Fast forward a few short months, and there are at least a couple of chat groups to communicate the colour palette, the dress code, important dates, and to discuss the bridesmaids' responsibilities. If you haven't said stop yet, let me save you from wondering. This is where, in my mind, I would be screaming, stop. I've and ahed about this episode for a while because I could absolutely do a chunky and rich 2 or more part series on how to be a good bridesmaid, how to be a better bridesmaid, what expectations are reasonable and what is just not on, with the subtext where bridesmaids are royally fucking up. But when I started to list everything out, I got really angry and I got tired too, because I wonder, does anyone really give a fuck anymore? And what I mean by that is, should we be wondering what the secret code for bridesmaids is, deciphering it, working around it, and trying desperately not to upset the bride? Or can we agree that the social circumstances, the world, and our needs have changed, and we have more demands and commitments in our own lives than ever before? So is it really in our best interests to continue the bridesmaid dance? And because, let me put this out there, I've seen countless numbers of relationships, including sisters or half-sisters, sister-in-laws and girlfriends. I've seen their relationships implode due to the relentless expectations of what being a bridesmaid should mean. The bride thinks one thing, the bridesmaid thinks something else. And I can save you the suspense. There is no one singular definition of how to be a great bridesmaid, groomsman, or wedding party member. So with that in mind, what the fuck is reasonable to be asked? And do you even want, or can you afford, to be in someone's I do crew these days? Today, I'm talking about the past, the present, and what I believe should be the future for bridesmaids and groomsmen, and what they should be, what they should be up to, what should be expected of them. Let's really get down to brass tacks here and work out which bridal party traditions and expectations are still relevant in this day and age, and how to minimise the drama. Let's get stuck into it. Unbridely is a community of pro-wedding vendors who believe in freedom and integrity in weddings, giving you options, solutions, tips and tricks to create the experience and memories that you and your fiancé really want and deserve. Because we believe that weddings are a team sport. With how-tos, stories and interviews with recently married couples, we find out what went right and what they'd change if they could go back and do it all over again. I'm Camille, and welcome to the Unbridely podcast. Okay, first up, section 1. We're going to start with where we've come from and then where we're going. It's funny when you think about being in a bridal party or a wedding party, it's easy to picture the classic comedy movie scenes. You know them so well. The best man planning a wild night out that goes hilariously wrong. The maid of honour wrangling everyone for last-minute DIY projects and trying to prevent everything from falling apart. And the bridesmaids and groomsmen lining up in matching ridiculous and ill-fitting outfits. But have you ever wondered where all these traditions, and therefore our obsession with replicating these tropes, actually came from? So we need to rewind a bit. Back in the day, like way back, wedding parties weren't just about throwing a long weekend bachelorette escape or making sure the do not play list included the Macarena. The original bridesmaids and groomsmen were not only necessary, but they also had some pretty serious jobs to do, and some people died for it. Back in ancient Roman times, it was believed that bridesmaids dressed similarly to the bride to confuse evil spirits. That's where it started out. Yeah, you want to confuse those evil ghosts. Once they worked out that evil spirits weren't really going to come and attack them, it was about the jealous exes. Yeah, seriously. Groomsmen, meanwhile, were basically the groom's bodyguards and or best soldiers or protectors. They were there to fight with him and help out if things got dicey. It was much less plan a cute brunch and much more let's make sure nobody kidnaps the bride. But here's something a lot of people don't realise. The earliest bridesmaids and groomsmen weren't just friends or the besties who got them through their university years. They were often literal servants and soldiers. Bridesmaids were handmaidens, and groomsmen were often soldiers or attendants. These elaborate weddings, with all their traditions and the entourages, they were mostly reserved for the elite, for royalty, the super wealthy. Ordinary folks just didn't have the means or the need for such grand affairs and celebrations as these. Over time, we reached the 1900s and these roles started to shift. They became less about fending off danger and more about supporting the couple emotionally and, let's be honest, organising a whole heap of brunches and group chats. But even as the focus changed, those traditional expectations just kind of stuck around. There's always been this idea that if you're chosen as a maid of honour or a best man, you're supposed to go above and beyond. You're meant to care more, be more excited, invest more time and money, let's not forget that, be a constant sounding board for the person getting married. And, that means being their emotional therapist. You're also meant to be bringing up the topic of the upcoming wedding frequently to show how much you care, which I believe sounds much more like a demanding job. And because of that, it's a shit ton to expect from someone who you're not paying for that privilege of waiting on you hand and foot. And then, of course, there are the stereotypes. We've all heard the stories, the best man who takes one last wild night a little too far, or the maid of honour who somehow makes everything about herself. These tales are practically wedding folklore at this point. But it's important to remember that they are just exactly that, stories. Real life is actually a lot messier, and most people are just trying to do their best for their friends. What's really interesting is how much these roles have changed and how quickly they've changed, especially in the last decade. But before we get into all the modern twists, you might be relieved to know that at its core, being at a wedding party has always been about showing up for your people. Whether you're fending off ancient curses or just making sure the speeches don't go off the rails. So if you've ever worried about doing it right, please remember the heart of these roles has always been about love, loyalty, and a little bit of chaos thrown in for good measure. And honestly, what could be more modern and relatable than that? So moving on to what we're doing now. Let's go to today because, oh my fucking God, a lot has changed. Gone are the days when being in a wedding party meant squeezing into a shiny taffeta dress made of so many unnatural fibres that you were a combustible fire hazard in summer, or, one of the people wearing a stiff 3-piece morning suit, the one that had tails, complete with cufflinks, top hat, and a cummerbund, because tradition and society said so. In 2025, and you'd hope for all times in the future, it's about having a wedding party who feels special and valued while also reflecting the priorities of the couple getting married. One of the biggest shifts that's happened has been the move away from strict gender roles. You don't need, inverted commas, bridesmaids or groomsmen anymore. So we're seeing all combinations, people who identify as male standing with the bride, women standing with the groom, and friends of all rainbow colours and genders supporting whoever the fuck they love. Some couples are reflecting this change by using non-gender specific title roles like person of honour, best mate, or even I do crew. It's all about what feels right for you and your people. And if you want some ideas, try these on for size. What about attendant? Sounds a bit dry. Mate of honour. I kind of like that. Best person or best people. Best mate. Wedding attendant. Bridesmaid, groomsmate. Person of honour. Wedding crew, wedding party. I do crew. We've gone through that one. Dream team. Friends of honour. Wedding posse. Wedding gang. Wedding squad. Partner in honour. Bachelor X or bachelor mix. So as in gender neutral bachelor. There's ring security, ring guardian, ring carrier. And instead of a flower girl, flower carrier, flower child, flower granny or grandpa, grand flower carrier, like you name it. And then, new roles have been starting to come in, like the beer bearer, beer boy, beer man. But it could just simply be beer bearer, beer carrier. They'll come around before the ceremony and ply your guests with drinks. So there's some alternative terms for gender neutral wedding party members, or as a group. And it's not just about the gender either. Families and friendships look very different to how they did 30, 40 years ago too. Maybe your sibling, brother, sister, whatever, is your best friend. Or maybe you want your grandma by your side. Maybe you have friends who've been there with you through thick and thin and you want them all up there with you, regardless of who's traditionally supposed to stand where. The modern wedding party is about celebrating those real, ride or die, meaningful relationships and not just ticking boxes, The idea of, he's got 4 groomsmen, I need 4 bridesmaids. Who can I ask? That's just not even relevant anymore. Another thing that's changed is the level of flexibility. In the past, there was this unspoken rule book on etiquette that everyone was expected to know and understand. I don't know how, but anyway, through bullying, I suspect. But anyway, all the bridal party were expected to, if not match pretty closely, like at least within a range, you want them the same height, pretty much the same weight, same hairstyle or hair colour, clothes, same clothes, definitely, same shoes, same jewellery. Everyone had to walk into the ceremony and or out in pairs. That's why you need those even wedding party numbers so they could be paired up and, 2 by 2. Everyone had to stand beside the couple getting married. It just keeps going. Then there are the other rules around the bride's family paying for the wedding, the groom's family paying for the rehearsal dinner, the honeymoon, the cars, the maid of honour organising the bachelorette party and the bridal shower and going dress shopping with the bride too. So it seemed over the years that a lot of young couples just started questioning it. They discovered that there weren't really any substantial reasons for why we did these things except social grandstanding and the good old, that's what my parents did. And so now couples are making their own traditions. And you might see it on social media. You might see wedding parties in mismatched outfits or just with a particular colour palette to choose from, or even people choosing their own looks entirely. It's shocking. Sometimes there's no formal wedding party at all. And it's just a group of loved ones supporting the couple from the front 2 rows during the ceremony. And all these changes, I think, are a reaction to the way our lives have evolved. We're generally more open. We're generally more inclusive, more willing to question why we do things a certain way. And honestly, from someone working in the trenches, from, myself standing somewhere near the front most of the time, conducting a ceremony, it's making weddings more fun, more personal, and way less stressful for everyone involved. So if you're about to be in a wedding party and you're not sure what your role is supposed to look like, First up, don't stress, because there is no longer a one-size-fits-all formula. Did you know that most newlyweds spend up to 8 hours of their precious time working through changing their last name after they get married? This is where easy name change comes in. Their kits provide you with a sort of shopping list of businesses, companies and government departments where you simply pick which ones you need to notify. They then send you detailed instructions on how to go about the name change process because every business is different, and this saves you hours of calling around, waiting on hold, sending emails, waiting for a response, and then remembering to follow up when you don't hear back from them. Easy name change kits also provide ready-to-send forms, letters and emails, so you just attach your marriage certificate to them and you're done. Starting at $39, the value and time you get back is a no-brainer. For more help on changing your name after you get married, there is an excellent blog post on the Unbridely website, and I'll put a link in the show notes for you. Plus, Unbridely podcast listeners get a $6 discount on their name change kits by using the code Unbridely6. That's UNBRIDELY 6, the number 6, and this is valid until the end of 2025. Get your easy name change kit so you can move on to the fun parts of being grown-ups together, like holidays, getting a dog, building a house, herb gardens. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, social media and reality TV. So if you've ever scrolled through Instagram or TikTok during wedding season in particular, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Suddenly, it feels like overnight to me, but every wedding party looks like they've stepped straight out of a designer magazine. Everyone's coordinated. The speeches are hilarious and heartfelt, and the dance moves are somehow flawless. So no pressure, right? It's wild how much things have changed in just the last decade. So thanks to platforms like Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube in particular, the bar feels so much higher for everyone in the wedding party now, don't you think? Because there's endless resources out there. You know, the highlight reels of epic bachelorette trips, the choreographed entrances, the surprise, inverted commas, surprise, except that it's been planned for months, flash mobs. And let's not forget the viral wedding moments. These can set some seriously unrealistic expectations. There's reality TV, so shows like Say Yes to the Dress, 4 Weddings, Married at First Sight, we call it MAFS here in Australia, have turned wedding planning and being in a wedding party into more of a spectator sport. And it feels like it's not just about supporting your friend, it's about being on for the cameras, even if those cameras are just your cousin's iPhone, There's this unspoken competition to have the most creative, the most Instagrammable, the most memorable wedding moments. And here's the thing, all that pressure, it's not always helpful. I can't think of when it's ever helpful. And in fact, it can make people in the wedding party feel like they have to perform instead of just being present. Maybe you're worried that your toast, your speech, isn't funny enough, or like you need to plan this over-the-top bachelor party because what if it's posted online? It starts to get really exhausting. The reality is most couples and their wedding parties, they aren't living up to those perfectly curated feeds. Behind every viral wedding video, there are 100 awkward moments, missed cues, group chats full of, what are we supposed to be doing again? Conversations on the night, what time was that meant to be happening? That part is totally normal. So if you're feeling pressure to be the perfect wedding party member, I'd love for you to just consider that real life isn't a highlight reel. And the best memories from weddings usually come from the unscripted parts, the parts you didn't plan, the parts the couple didn't plan, genuine moments when you're all out laughing together, when you're helping out behind the scenes to make something work, or just being there when it matters the most. At the end of the day, your friend or family member chose you for a reason. And geez, I really hope, but I'm trusting that they want you to be by their side, not because you can pull off a TikTok dance, but because you're you. And that's more than enough. All right, now that I've talked about traditions and the social media pressures, let's get down to what really counts when you're in a wedding party. Spoiler alert, it's not about perfect outfits. It's not about the best speech. It's about being there for your person in a way that feels good for you, that feels genuine and supportive. First off, the most important responsibilities, I think, haven't really changed much over the years. Being in a wedding party means showing up emotionally and practically. That could mean helping to plan a bridal shower or a bachelor party, running around ticking things off the to-do list, or just being a calm, steady presence when things get hectic. Sometimes it's as simple as listening when your friend needs to vent or giving them a pep talk before a big moment. But here's where it gets tricky, because sometimes people get caught up in the spotlight and they forget that the day is about the couple, not themselves. They're reminders of what not to do. So how do you avoid those kinds of pitfalls? Communication. Communication is key. Talk with the couple early on about what they want and what they expect from you. Are they hoping for lots of help with planning? Or do they just want you to show up and be present? Are there any boundaries you should know about? Because being clear from the very start can save a lot of headaches later. And also remember, it is okay to say no. If something they ask for feels overwhelming or outside of your comfort zone, speak up and speak up early. Your friend will appreciate your honesty, and it's better to be upfront than to overcommit or drop hundreds or thousands of dollars and burn out. And don't forget the little things. Sometimes the best support is behind the scenes. So I was saying it before, helping with setup, calming the nerves, or just being the person who keeps everyone laughing when tensions run high. Those moments might not make the highlight reel, but they mean the world to the couple getting married. And finally, be present, not just physically, but emotionally. If you genuinely celebrate their joy, you support their decisions, and you're flexible when things don't go exactly as planned, because, weddings rarely go perfectly, your calm, positive energy will make all the difference to them. At the end of the day, being a great wedding party member isn't about perfection. It's about the love, loyalty, and showing up as your best self. And that's what makes the day really special and solidifies your friendship with the couple too. So here's the big takeaway, and I said it from the start. There is no universal checklist for being the perfect wedding party member anymore. Every couple is different, every friendship is unique, and every wedding has its own vibe. And honestly, that's what makes it all so much more meaningful. We're not just going through a checklist anymore. If you're feeling unsure about what you should be doing, the best place to start is with a real conversation. So not texts, not messages, talking, talk, exchange, voice. The exchange of voice. Ask your friend or family member what would help them most. Maybe they just need someone to organise a group gift, or maybe they just want you to be their sounding board during planning stress. Some couples want their wedding party super involved, and others prefer to keep things really simple and low key. Both are totally valid. It's all fine, but you get to choose if it works for you. It's also important to remember that things never go smoothly in the planning of a wedding, in the running of a wedding. Never. There's always things. There's often moments of confusion and there's disagreements within the group. It's totally normal. The key is to approach everything with kindness and patience and a willingness to adapt. So if something isn't working, again, I keep saying it, it's true. Talk it out. If you made a mistake, own it and move on. because all of you are learning as you go. It's super rare that all the people within a wedding party and the couple getting married are the same group that's done this before. You're learning as you go. You're learning how to communicate as a group who haven't been brought together before. And don't be afraid to bring your own personality and strengths to the role. Are you great at organising? Offer to help with the logistics. Are you the life of the party? It doesn't start until you enter the room. Then lead the group in a toast or to get everyone dancing. Maybe you're just a quiet supporter. And that's when your calming presence can be just as valuable as any flashy or big cost sort of gesture. At the end of the day, what matters most is that you're there for your person in a way that feels true to your relationship. You don't have to fit into a traditional mold. You don't have to live up to social media standards. Just be present, be supportive, and be yourself. So go ahead, make your own traditions, celebrate your unique bond, and remember that your role is special simply because it's yours. The best wedding party member isn't the one who does it right. It's the one who shows up with love, authenticity, and a willingness to help however they can. And that's what a modern wedding party is all about. Oh man, what a rant. I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to know what you've heard, what you've experienced about, being in a wedding party, whether that's bridesmaid, groomsman, best man, maid of honour, attendant, whatever. I'd love to know what the expectations were, how you got around them, or whether you just dropped out. I think there's a way to make it all easier. I think there is a simpler path, and yeah, you don't have to run around with a checklist to make it happen. I hope you can see the easier path too. I'm going to sign off right there, and I'll chat with you next week. That about wraps it up for this episode of the Unbridely podcast. For the links and resources we mentioned, please head to the show notes. And if you love the show, please review and subscribe on the podcast platform you're on now so you don't miss out on a single episode. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, weddings are a team sport. Catch you soon.